I am Stephen O'Grady. I'm the co-founder of RedMonk. I think the interesting thing for me with Graph is that it is one of sort of a number of different non-relational technologies that has essentially emerged over the last decade plus. And for decades we had sort of relational databases only, and then we sort of split off. We have all sorts of specialized data stores now. So it makes sense because it's a different tools for different jobs, sort of type approach. Graph in particular is it's valuable because it allows us to do different things with different problems, in the sense that it traverses, graphs, obviously, and can do this much more quickly than the relational technologies that preceded it. So the use cases are pretty varied. You've heard certainly talk today of everything from delivery routing to social graph traversal, IoT use cases. Really anywhere there is essentially a preponderance of entities, whatever they might be, and there are relationships between them that need to be analyzed, for any purpose. Graph is a pretty good fit. Yeah, I think one of the ones that comes to mind, Hillary Mason gave this morning's keynote and did a great job. And her background, is in, for lack of a better term, artificial intelligence. So she has done things like machine learning and deep learning and applied these sort of techniques and approaches to a variety of data problems. And to me, there's a natural fit there in the sense that some of the data sets that are going to feed these machine learning systems are going to be graph in nature, and therefore being able to traverse them, being able to process them, and have having integration points between the two systems, I think will be critical. I think that the graph technology, from my perspective, I think the biggest thing it needs to do is just go mainstream, because it's been a very useful tool, for quite some time now. It has still been a specialized and in many cases niche tool. So what we want essentially is to get to a point where everybody understands that graph is a real important technology, and it's something that people can sort of pick up and analyze, much in the way that they would with a relational database today. I think that the biggest takeaway from my keynote is going to be essentially developers and sort of practitioners, data scientists. We all need to take a step back and think about what we're building, and more importantly, why we're building it, right? Because there has been a history in this industry of people just building things either because it's interesting or because they were instructed to, and some of these things that we have built have been damaging, at times, potentially dangerous. So the idea is essentially to try to get developers to be more conscious of the wider context in terms of what they build and what they're being asked to build, both for ethical reasons, but also for purposes that are much more self-interested, for their own career, for their own earning potential, and so on. So yeah, if there's one thing I hope they all take away, it's just always ask the question, why?